The following podcast is recorded and produced by Emerge, a media creators co-op, in affiliation with the network at bicbb-radio.com.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Next of Kin. I'm your host, Rich, joined by my son, Christian. How are you doing, sir?
What's up?
How you doing?
I don't know. Good.
It's a rare Sunday recording.
What do you mean rare? We don't have any. We don't record on any.
Yeah, but we don't usually record on Sundays.
Is that true? I don't even know.
Yeah,
like,
we almost never record on Sundays.
I don't even. Okay, if you say so.
Okay.
I'll take your word for it.
Wow, did you hear that, ladies and gentlemen? He said, "If I say so." So that means like you're listening to me.
All right, yeah.
Sure, we'll go with that. But just switching headsets. But sorry. All right, so we're going to focus today on Bad Batch season 2. We've kind of talked a little bit about Bad Batch, but we've never really covered it on a wide scale. Mm-hmm. So we're going to kind of talk about the whole season, kind of how the season wrapped up, what we thought of it. A little bit of Mandalorian, but then again, we always like to talk about on like kind of the dynamic between you and I, being father and son, and the fact that you got me hooked into Rebels. So you've been rewatching Rebels,
yeah.
Which is this
you've mentioned a couple times.
Is this the second? Is this your how many rewatches of Rebels do you think you've
I don't
done?
know. I've probably watched through Rebels actually I don't even know how many times I've watched
You've watched episodes. Have you ever done a full
watched
rewatch like you're
season.
doing like now?
I remember I caught up with Rebels. This happens a lot with me. I catch up with a show when it's right before the final season comes out.
Oh, I see.
That's happened
Yeah.
a bunch of times with me.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones was the same thing. But I think the 3 seasons of Rebels were already out by the time I got around to watching it, and then I watched the final season in 2017, on almost not live, but on demand or whatever.
Once it
came out.
Yeah, kind of. But so you've never really kind of sat down though, you think, and done a complete rewatch.
I think I've probably rewatched it. I imagine just in the. What is that, 6 years ago, 7 years ago?
Right.
Since then, I imagine that I've watched through it, at least once. And I've watched,
and we've
people...
watched some episodes.
And I watched, people react to stuff,
yeah,
a bit,
so for me, this is my first time watching it. I've seen a few scenes here and there and maybe caught you guys watching an episode, back in the day, maybe 5 years ago, watching an episode.
Yeah, and there's certain arcs in, episodes that I go back and watch it, with anything Star Wars. But, I don't... It's at least 3 years or 3-4 years since the last full time I watched Rebels through. Right. I think.
Well, Wednesdays have been kind of busy for us because we've been getting up. We're trying to find the time for the three, me and you and your brother, to watch Mando and then watch Bad Batch, and then now Zach and I are trying to watch Ted Lasso. I know you're not really a Ted Lasso fan, but
I like Ted Lasso.
Yeah, but you're not. It's not appointment TV.
I just don't religiously watch it.
Yeah, where Zach and I try to make sure I get to watch Ted Lasso. Yeah. Then Thursdays I have Picard.
Which I didn't get to yet this week.
Yeah, you're kind of behind on an episode of Picard because the schedule was weird this week. So anyways, let's get into Bad Batch. So we just completed season 2. Overall thoughts, how'd you think? What did you think of the season?
Mostly good. I don't know, is it weaker or better than the first season is the question.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point.
Probably a little bit weaker. I don't know. It's hard to because I think the filler in this season was worse than the filler last season, if that made sense.
I'd agree with that.
But I think when the story of Bad Batch actually they focus on kind of the core stuff, which is the clones' place in the new Empire.
Right.
And to get stories that are more connected to that, or when it's anything that has Crosshair, basically, as well.
Yeah.
Because he's just the most interesting of the bunch. And there were a couple weird things this season. I don't know. There's ups and downs with the season. I know a lot of people dislike Omega, but she's a kid. What do you want her to do? I think a lot of people are always going to be annoyed by children.
You know how I hate children in shows.
I'm fine with her because she handles the and this was the same with Ezra. Even though she is annoying at times, and then I'll let you go with your thing about children's shows. I think when the emotional stuff, which there is occasionally those family moments with the Batch, right. I think the voice actor does a good job with those. like in the last episode, which we'll get to, with dealing with the tech stuff that which we won't spoil anything yet. I think the voice actor does a good job with it.
Okay.
And she sells it. Even though I think everything else is just almost purposeful annoyance with her being a child and innocent, at least in a respect. Although I did like that also that Omega as a character got to progress this season. She didn't have to she already has a little bit taller. She's already aged a decent amount. And she's was a member of the squad. At least totally by the end of the season, they totally trusted her to do objectives and stuff.
Yeah, what I like about this show is they don't have these moments where on a regular basis where Omega has to save the day. That drives me crazy, and I feel that's where most people. I think they've done what I've liked about what they do with Omega is the fact that she grew up kind of in an indoor on a water planet. I think whenever they bring her to a new environment that she wouldn't have seen, I really like those moments. I like when she went to the planet, with the island.
Yeah, she spent her first 10 years on Water World.
Yes, when she goes to Coruscant, those kinds of things. I think they do a really nice job with that with her. I think the voice actress is very good. I agree with everything you said. I don't find Omega annoying, and I find kids on shows annoying on a regular basis.
After 2 seasons, I think I said this on the other podcast, the Star Wars one, as well. I think Omega is less annoying by the first 2 seasons of Bad Batch than Ezra was, in Rebels, Or I think I'm probably less annoyed by Omega.
You know what? The only
just by season 1.
I know
Ezra
we're gonna get.
is a bit too
I know
much.
we're gonna get to Rebels.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
But I agree with that too. I think that Ezra's a lot of. But you don't trust me. I want to be a Jedi. Where Omega just wants to be part of the family. She wants them to It's not, you have to respect me and my abilities. It's just, I just want to, but I do think the stuff with Omega, which is cool, is when she's you don't have to protect me. We can't not be who we are as a team because of me. We have to do what we're supposed to do.
Which was kind of the moral, thing that they were, because again, this season was a bit of and people were annoyed by it, that they were still working with Sid. And they were still, and a lot of the missions early on were the pod racer thing, and then there was the one random episode with the really big mech crazy mech machine,
right.
And all this kind of side stuff, and then they would almost not get away with anything from it, and I think that was almost purposeful to have them get more and more frustrated with their situation, and then and Echo leaves obviously to go do his own thing because he doesn't like that they're doing nothing.
I think that's really important. I think that and I never thought about that. I'm glad you brought that up because that's a really cool point. Is that they go on those missions and they weren't successful. Things would happen and they were just kind of getting frustrated, and then you can see it in Echo that he's
who's the most he's a reg too, so he cares the Bad Batch never had the best, and that's why it was a weird choice to have the Bad Batch kind of be this era, because the Bad Batch didn't necessarily have this cherished relationship with regs, regular clones. If anything, there was a lot of hostility between regular clones and the Bad Batch.
But
besides the couple that had the respect.
But that ended up furthering the story.
True,
and
they have become more empathetic to regs. I would think.
If you would have had just a bunch of regs, let's assume it was the Rex show, and it was just Rex and a bunch of guys that he gathers together. And Echo was in that.
I think we're getting close to that happening.
Well, no, but the point would be is that when Echo says we should be doing more to help other clones, they would have said, because Rex would have been doing it all along. Yeah. Where they have to get there because they weren't necessarily accepted, and they kind of realized that they, in many ways, are going to be kind of they need to be helping their clone brothers, even though they weren't necessarily accepted by them. It makes more sense.
No, I agree. That makes sense.
So I think because otherwise, now you could say, well, then you should have done it earlier. Okay, but they still, this is the thing that it comes down with all television shows. I don't care if it's the 1970s and you have to have 26 episodes. I don't care if it's the 1980s and 90s where you have to have 22 episodes. I don't care if it's the streaming that you nowadays and you have to have 6 to 8 or 12. You gotta fill episodes. So unfortunately, you can't have every single episode just be about the main plot. You can have some other things that are about character development. So there's that episode where they're looking for whatever They're looking for the unobtainium on the one planet.
Yeah, that shit.
And
yeah.
and they do and a lot of that episode.
That was a good one. When the ship got stolen,
right?
That thing. Oh yeah, the episode after that was
awful. No, the episode after that's kind of awful.
Yeah, we were too nice to that episode actually.
But the scenes where you've got Omega and Tech together. No, Omega and
this is a good segue to what I wanted to talk about.
Like, I think that was actually kind of done well. Like, there was aspects of that were kind of done well. So, yes, it's not the best episode. It's a 7 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10. But there were some elements of it that were like an 8. That I think further the entire plot.
Again, I was just looking at real quick on like the episode totals this season, and like what we were saying, when it's something that's like intrinsically related to like the fate of the clones or to like Crosshair, like
the Crosshair episodes
or like the Empire's story, like the ratings, like I'm just on IMDb. Like they go way up. Like if the first 2 episodes of the season weren't really anything related to that, they're like more in like the mid 7s. Then you go right to like the 3, which is like the Cody Crosshair episode, which is one of the better episodes of this season, which was like a reverse Clone Wars episode because they had the Separatist
without
droids.
a doubt. Yeah.
So it was like a really clever twist on like the old classic model. Also, Cody was one of the clones at the end of the last episode. He was one of the clones like strapped down.
Oh,
Zach said that.
Oh, I didn't
catch that either.
Ooh,
but somebody,
okay. Well,
which makes sense, like given like that he disappeared at the end of that episode. So
okay, that makes sense.
So that he's not with Rex. He was questioning, so they fucking got him and they snatched him up basically.
There's some really good stuff in that.
But then you look, but that episode's like a 9. Is rated like a 9 on IMDb. Like the one with Cody and Crosshair.
Oh yeah.
But then you get like the couple of like filler ones again, and it's down to like a 6, and then like a 6 again. Then you have the Gunji episode, that's a little bit higher.
I like
the
Gunji. The Gunji episode's a really good episode
because
it's Gunji.
Exactly. Just happy to have him back, even though it is a little bit fillery.
No, but it does speak to what the Empire did and does.
Yeah.
And the fact what's happened to the Wookiees. So like I think that's important.
No, that's cool lore for the overall world.
Yes.
And there's some Old Republic stuff they brought back in that, and some like, and just having Gunji survive Order 66 is nice.
And the Gunji Omega relationship was fun.
Yeah, that was actually was a nice little because he was even trying to like meditate and stuff, like he was and like feeling the. Also, he had that weird that was the thing at the end too, where like the Wookiees almost were tapped into some weird like force magic thing that
like
they
Avatar.
used to like. Yeah, it was some weird. Kind of
Avatar with the magic tree.
Bit, yeah. But then you get to like the episode 7 and 8, which are like the clone conspiracy stuff when they had like the Senate, and like those episodes, like the ratings skyrocket back up to like high 8s, like a 9 again. So when the story is like talking about like this main story in Bad Batch, like the episodes are like almost always like in the mid 8s to like low 9s. So the people do like the core story of Bad Batch. Like it's just that the season's maybe a little bit too long, and they have these little fillery stuff because it is like a kid
It is
show.
16 episodes, and and
I think people just get frustrated when you can have a show that's like again, like the last episode, which is like a 9.2, or like the tone of the last couple episodes of the season, and then you have like a first couple are more like the pod racer episode.
I hate
so
the
it's
pod
more
racer.
like
it's more like
you only get so
episode.
much, and then you get like the pod, which I didn't even hate the pod race episode that much, but
it's a terrible early season episode.
Yeah, the season just started off very
it's
very
like
slow.
We need to have an episode for Tech or whatever, just to be like whatever.
I will say though, in the first season, the only relationships that they really managed to like really build with Omega.
Like
the Bad Batch have always
Hunter.
Yeah, the Bad Batch always have like camaraderie. Like that's always like a thing. But like but it's mainly just Hunter and Omega.
Yeah.
Get
and Wrecker somewhat.
Well,
too.
and Wrecker gets it somewhat because Wrecker weirdly this is kind of treated as like a kid as well.
Yeah.
Not like as much as Omega,
right.
but they kind of have to make sure that Omega's like he's like paying attention too, because just like he's you know what I mean, like he's a little dumb.
Well, Omega will just do whatever. Wrecker will do whatever they tell him to do.
Well, even on Pabu, he was running around with Omega and like the other girl, and that
He
was
was
like
having
purposeful
fun.
because
Yes.
that was like he's a child, like he's almost like a child
childlike.
in like a big.
They have
like,
to
body.
protect him.
Yeah.
I mean,
in a sense,
yes.
yeah.
I mean, it's almost like he has.
He's a little
like,
reckless.
It's almost like, again, he has a learning disability kind of thing, so he doesn't have the level of intelligence, obviously, the rest of them do.
Yeah.
And I think that they all kind of feel very protective of him, which when they get to the end of the season and they're talking about, spoilers,
Yeah.
staying or leaving Padu or whatever it's
Pabu.
called, that like part of it is for Wrecker, and Wrecker kind of seems like he wants to kind of chill out now and just stay for a while.
Like it, yeah.
Like he likes it there, and he feels like it's a purpose, and people are
so
just
you
trying
only
to
have
kill him all
those
the
two
time.
relationships in the first season, and mostly
Well, that's
it's
why this
mostly only
season
the
I
Hunter
felt
one
like-
as well. And this season you get specifically the
Hunter
first.
almost is in a back seat in a lot
Yeah,
of this
Hunter is like,
episode.
and I think that's a disservice because like. Not that I think Hunter's like the greatest character ever, but like Hunter and Omega's relationship is good. And one of the better points of like the first season. And Hunter, I think almost because he got so much in the first season, gets very little to do this season, but almost hold the team back like artificially out of his protection for Omega.
Right.
So which takes too long, I think, and I think once like it led to like Echo leaving, it should have like almost
Right.
Like there should have been at least somewhat of a change, but what they replace that with is obviously the first two episodes like are framed with Echo and Omega, like having because there's like a thing where Omega overhears like Hunter and like Echo talking about something, and she thinks like Echo like almost regrets that they have to like protect her and not like do other stuff. But so like they do a good thing with those two. Oh, just hit my mic. With those first two episodes of like of building like at least some relationship between like Echo and Omega, and then by the time that Echo leaves, like in that like episode 7 and 8 arc, like it's more believable, like that she's like very sad about it, and like then their relationship means more. And then the same thing with Tech, where like you learn a bit more about like his like neurodiversity and like how he like because his little because he doesn't show emotion and that sort of thing, and Omega couldn't really understand that. So like there was almost like a learning thing for like Omega to learn more about him and just about like people in general. So like that relationship built, and I think even like the course of the season, the Tech Omega relationship was probably the one they focused on most. And given where where the season ended, like we see why now they were focusing so heavily on that, especially in like the pod race episode. I think was like one of those, and then obviously the one where they're like trapped with the unobtainium episode, like that's the main one they used to build. But even like Tech teaching Omega to like fly the ship was like to show that they had like that, and then they continued on to do, and I think leaned even more into the like Omega's like best friend is Omega's best friend is basically Wrecker, like if that makes sense.
Right.
Like those two are like
all right,
the kids.
Let's kind of move on. So there were some really cool episodes. Some really cool stuff like that. One episode, Metamorphosis, where there's like the weird giant creature things. Mm-hmm. Those were kind of cool. Those kind of tie into some lore, correct? They tie into some Star Wars
Which
lore.
one's Metamorphosis?
That one with that's episode 11.
Oh, the Zillow Beast. Yeah, the Zillow Beast
Beast
episode was a little bit fillery, but also it was actually no, it wasn't, because it showed a bit of Mount Tanta's stuff and was related to the like the overall.
There was a lot of little things
thing
that I liked. Like
that was a cool plot point because it was just like 13 years since like it got dropped.
Well, that's my point. So those are things where they're kind of like catching up on some things. I do like the one early in the season when they go to like just to go to the planet where like Count Dooku's like money was, and there's like all the crap, the spoils of war that guy. That was the name of the episode. Like that's the one where he like. You know, they're taking all his stuff, like they're bringing it around. And then, to be honest, I think my favorite episode, if I have to do it like quickly without really going back and looking at all the episodes, is 12, and that's the Crosshair episode, the Outpost. No, that's the Outpost.
No,
episode.
with Mayday, with
Mayday.
the other clone. Yeah,
I think,
and like on the snow planet, that's a beautiful looking episode, and it's well written.
Let me talk about it. I just love that episode. It's a great. I don't know, like it's a classic episode of storytelling. We've seen that kind of episode to get on different types of shows. I like the fact that, you know, like that's when Crosshair really finally kind of gets it.
And they have to do a lot with him in one episode. They have to get him a decent amount, especially because the last episode.
First of all, he's getting screwed. Like he realized he's getting screwed, but he's like kind of getting frustrated. Yeah. He doesn't like the new boss or his commanding officer.
And even with the Cody
stuff.
episode early on, he still like shot the one like girl that was like the villain or whatever of that episode. Like not villain, I say.
Well, whatever.
With, like quotations,
the antagonist for him.
Yeah, the antagonist in the episode. Like he still like followed the Emperor's orders and like executed her. So like they have a lot of
and they didn't
ground to cover.
still didn't even
Yeah.
appreciate it when he got back. Like,
No, 100%. Yeah.
and I think that, and I like that they, and you it's not,
And they have the
it's-
Cody stuff
It's
to
not
wear
the
him down a
greatest
little
writing in
bit.
the world to not understand that we were headed towards this.
Yeah.
Like, but it can't. He can't just suddenly have one episode where he's like, "Oh my God, I've had an lightning,"
Yeah.
or they could have yada yada it with
They had a
some
lot,
clone
but
tech.
they had to move him a
No,
long
they
way,
really
and
moved
they
him.
Did
And they
well.
had to because of how far he had to come since the end of the last
Yeah,
season.
which
So
they set up in the finale.
They had to really, really, really move him along. So then we finally get to the Outpost episode with Mayday. Is that this guy's name?
Mayday's the one clone.
And
yeah.
and that other clone, which seems like a throwback clone to a lot of the clones that we would have known from Clone Wars. Obviously,
Yeah.
we've never met this dude before. And it's like he's there with this new young commander that's never done anything. And, you know, he kind of reminds me of the terrible guy from Andor that gives the terrible speech,
Yeah,
you know,
I'm
like
talking
the
about.
corporate, you know, kind of mentality dude. And you find out, like, that they've got uniforms and they basically hung these other old clones out to dry, and one by one they've got picked off. And they're there, and the guy still doesn't care. He doesn't care. And everything that that Mayday and Crosshair have to go through that episode to get to that moment at the end is just so well done. And it's it's incredibly animated well too. Like, so it's not just the visuals in an episode. I just really like that
That's
episode
the least
a
with the
lot.
Bad Batch. Every week, no matter what you're getting, you know it's gonna look very, very good. But even like with that episode looked even better than usual. Like, especially the one thing, like the ship shots now, like the establishment like shots that like show the environment, and like the ones that show like the actual like whether it's with the Star Destroyer or whether it's their ship, like those are nearly like movie quality. Like, if without the little bit of stylisticness, like, obviously that makes it the cartoon. But, like, they're so, like, it's basically the same. Like, it's
Well, if you think about it, they've gotten to a point with CGI spaceships. Now, I
Yeah.
know in Mandalorian, a lot of the ships are all conventional models.
A lot of them,
About 80% of them are.
they put them in the volume and they got the cockpit.
No, I mean the actual models of the
Oh,
ship.
yeah,
They're
true,
still
yeah.
doing a lot.
Yeah, they have little models
They've
as well,
gone
yes.
back to models, which is, like, really cool for me because I still think that.
And it looks better. It does.
It definitely looks better. You can do more, like, anyway. So, but when you're watching everything else that gets done, whether it's Star Trek or anything, you know, the difference between an animated X-Wing fighter and a CGI X-Wing fighter is all just in stylistic. It does the exact same
Exactly,
thing.
yeah.
It's really, you could just pretty much have a live-action looking version of an X-Wing fighter, but you wouldn't do it because it would be confusing to the stylistic choice. But they're so close in terms of what they do with the software that it's really just what the basic model, the original basic model that they put into the design
Yeah.
is. So whether it's the Clone Wars version of an X-Wing or I know it's not an X-Wing, but whatever ship it is that they want to do.
Yeah.
I think that they're kind of they're taking Bad Batch, which almost
I
seemed
think it's
like
going to be more focused next year. We almost had like an
Yeah.
Empire Strikes Back like type end to the season, and like
that's
hopefully
a
we're
good
going to
way
get a
of
bit
looking
more.
at it, sure.
And I think we're going to go like really lean into because weirdly when it got to that like third episode before where like you saw where Echo's been doing, and they like attack that one ship, and they find out that like Crosshair's been taken and a couple other things. But like where Echo's with like. And they save like Hauser, which was a clone we met like in season 1 during like the Ryloth arc with like Hera and all that.
Right.
And then some of those other clones, like we had Gregor back, Gregor, you haven't, he's going to, actually you met Gregor, he's in Rebels. He was with Rex, like on the AT-AT with Wolf and all that. Right. So you have him, you have like I forget what the other guy's name was. Fireball, I think was the other guy's name, and who almost like knew Hauser as well. So it was like he was saving his old like sergeant or something. Right. So that was cool. We actually got to see kind of a little bit of what Rex has been up to, like that corner of things, which I think is what people are more interested in. Sure. And I think now that that the next season is the end of this season, the last couple episodes, we should probably talk about that first actually before we get into like
so
what the next
last
season's
couple
about.
episodes they're going to set up the fact that Crosshair is, they want Crosshair to basically betray the Bad Batch because the scientists all want Omega because they need Omega.
They're trying to get But it's actually not even like because they need Omega for something. It's more
it's to manipulate
it's the threat in
Doctor.
Nala Se, one of the
right.
Kaminoans that they left alive and didn't butcher. Like basically, like it's just more for leverage than actually at least I assume they're gonna try to find some use for Omega. And again, we don't really know what Omega's enhancement is, do we?
No.
She's quick. Like, she catches on quick and learns rather quickly, seemingly.
Well, she's obviously supposed to be intelligent, so she's supposed to be similar to the other person, again, spoiler, that's there that is essentially an older version of her.
Yeah, I guess. But,
there's
no saying that
the female
those,
scientist is there is clearly. She said, I'm your sister.
Yeah, but there's no saying that
so she's an older version of her.
Yeah, but true. But there's no saying that those clones are also enhanced. There's no like saying that those ones are also like her. Like she could, because again, she's an unaltered. Like is she like an enhanced clone because she's unaltered, or is she an enhanced clone because she has a specific ability? Because obviously
like
Hunter
Boba
has
Fett.
like weird vibration senses
How
or
old's
whatever.
Boba Fett during this show?
Like probably slightly older than Omega. Like
So
maybe
are
a
we
year
getting
or
a
two.
Boba Fett appearance?
I imagine we have to get. I was surprised that we haven't seen Boba Fett yet, if I'm being honest.
I
I
think
thought
they're
that was
building
going to
up
be
to
a
it.
bit more. Well, I think Omega's going to survive the show and like probably survive to adulthood and like be seen at some point, like whether that's in like a Boba Fett season 2,
I would
where
think
you
that'd
could
be great.
actually like make an actual story for your season instead of like doing whatever the fuck they did for season 1. Like,
Can they do that though while Bad Batch is running?
probably not. But
'Cause
again,
then- 'cause
Bad
then
Batch
it
probably
gives
is
away
only
the
going to last
ending.
like 2 or 3
Because then
more
it gives
years,
the ending
right?
away. Yeah,
Like,
that was one of my questions. I said, how many seasons of Bad Batch do you think we're getting? 4?
did you get like, I don't know, 'cause
2
we're-
more?
What are we, like a year or 2 into like the Empire probably in Bad
Yeah.
Batch? Like a year or 2 maybe?
Yeah.
Like not too far. I mean, the earliest thing we have otherwise is like Jedi Fallen Order, the game
Right.
series, which is like not the most like centralized thing in
Right.
the world, but I don't know.
I can't think we're getting more than a couple episodes.
I think we're
going
gonna
to
get some Clone Rebellion shit at some point. When it's
Well, they
probably
have to
not, which is not
explain
going
what
to
happened to all the clones.
end well,
Yeah,
realistically.
no,
so.
it's not. But I think they're going to say, because obviously we know Rex survives.
I
We
think
know
Rex
that.
knows it's not going to end well, but he's just trying to.
He's
It's
trying
almost
to-
like let's get
yeah.
as many people out as we can. Like is almost the idea.
He's Schindler listing this. I
Yeah,
mean, like,
I think that's more. Rex isn't really fighting the Empire. He's kind of trying to save his brothers. Is more of the goal than to actually like take down the Empire and like establish the Republic again. That's not what Rex seems to be in this for. It's more like our brothers are getting like experimented on and are going to be like thrown away and mistreated essentially by this new Empire.
he's
so
going
let's
to be
get
able.
them out. Let's save
That's
them.
what I'm
Let's
saying.
get that message
it's
across.
very Schindler's List that he knows he can't save everybody, but can I save enough? And I
Yeah.
think it's almost like we're going to get that.
Or
at
how
some
many
point.
can I save?
We're
Like-
going to get that kind of. I wish I could have saved more. I could have saved so many more. Like we're going to get that moment from Rex at some point. We're going to get that true Schindler
Yeah.
kind of aspect of the show.
But in these couple episodes, though, obviously they figure out that Crosshair has been turned, or at least like at least that's what this file says essentially that they get from Echo on that Echo gets on that ship. They go to like on a mission to like Iriadu, I think is the planet, which
Right.
is like Tarkin's homeworld, which we've heard about in canon a lot before. And he
But
has like a
even
whole
before that-
compound there.
But even before that, remember, Echo tries to Crosshair tries to escape, and he sends a message out.
Oh, that's right.
It's actually kind of cool because rather than trying to escape, he actually tries to.
He warns them about
He
Omega.
warns them more. He cares more about warning his brothers and Omega than he does
That they're gonna
about
come for them,
protecting
yeah.
himself. Because like he knows he maybe won't be able to escape, so he's like, well, at the very least, I can warn them. And so he tells them Plan 99.
So basically, they figure out like the doctor essentially, and that doctor is creepy, a good villain actually. Like they
Yep,
actually
no,
set up a pretty
very good,
decent, like
yeah.
almost like a Nazi, like.
Yep.
It was I want to know what it is. It's almost because they even mentioned that like the Republic kicked him out of like their like science school or whatever. So like he was doing shit that like the Republic didn't like, but the Empire came in power. Was like, hey, look, he did some creepy shit. Let's hire that guy again.
So at the end,
So
obviously
it's
the
almost
last
like
episode,
those
they-
crazy
yeah.
doctors that like Russia and like
Right.
the U.S. picked up
Well,
from
let's-
like Germany
yeah.
despite their crimes and stuff.
So we
Like,
get to the last episode, and basically, like they decide they need to try to rescue him, or find out where they're taking the clones. It seems more is kind of the thing.
Yeah.
Where are they taking all these clones? So they go to do that.
They put a tracker on the guy's ship.
Yeah,
because
and,
there's a conference.
and
Nice little
obviously it
Krennic
doesn't
cameo.
go well.
Yeah.
Like lots of and it's setting up kind of like you said, kind of an Empire Strikes Back ending. For season 2, where we're kind of like,
Yeah.
it looks like,
Spoilers.
It looks like it looks like they're all going to get captured and Omega's going to get away, and then it gets flipped around.
Well, they go there to put the tracker on the ship, and they run into like Saw Gerrera as well, who's doing like a full-on terrorist attack. Right. Like this is like the first time we've seen, like, well, not the first time because we're gonna see it at Rebels at some point,
right?
Because like there's a bit of Saw Gerrera in Rebels that we haven't got to yet. But this is like the biggest terror attack we've ever seen. Because if you read the books and the literature that's associated with Saw Gerrera as well, Saw Gerrera is like a full on, like, he's a terrorist. He's not even like, he's not a freedom fighter like in the way that like the way it sometimes gets like.
Did you come
warped.
here to kill
It's like
me?
No, like he's crazy. Like,
Are you an assassin?
He's literally insane. He's brutal. Like he believes anything is what it takes to, as long as it's like brings down like the evil empire. Like there's no evil as long as it's fighting this evil is more of what his vibe is. And obviously like it blows up even their tracker and and does significant damage to this base, which I assume that Tarkin is now going to use that attack in season 2, that terrorist attack, to almost crack down harder, and is being one of the more first things to like take away even more rights from the galaxy. So I think they're going to use that as well.
I got a funny. I want to point here that I told you about when we were watching it that I want to bring up. I think it's cool because, you know, like everybody's kind of panicking because there's terrorists in the thing, and Tarkin's like, we're safe. Everybody sit down.
Put the shields down.
We're still doing our meeting. Everybody have a freaking seat because we're safe here. And I think it's cool.
And he gets mad when they bomb him. He's like, you have the audacity to bomb me?
Well, what I like about it is it really lines up with episode 4, where at the end when he's like, when they're attacking the Death Star and the guy walks up, he said, you know, we noticed that there's.
We should get you out of here,
We should get you out of here. It's like, leave? In a moment of triumph? I think you overestimated our chances. It's like, sucker, you're going down.
You're gonna blow up.
Speaking of terrorists, that Luke Skywalker.
Yeah,
that's
a terrorist.
That's
attack.
a terrorist.
No, he's a freedom fighter, bro. Everyone on the Death Star was bad. Everyone on the Death Star was bad, man.
Yeah, it's like what's the?
I did read a couple books that actually had like. I read a book where there was like Iden Versio. That's right. Then in one of the Battlefront games, like the character you play as,
was hunting Luke Skywalker?
No, it was like was one of the TIE fighter pilots, like who was outside of the Death Star when it blew up. So they survive. Like, and so they're one of like the very, very, very few like survivors of like the Death Star explosion. So like you get that angle of that character, which then you get a whole book of like hearing from that character's perspective for a bit. And again, that character eventually becomes a rebel. Like, so like and that character's not beloved, but I thought that it was a decent arc for a character.
That guy would have died in space though.
No, it was a girl, but yeah.
How did she survive as a TIE fighter pilot?
I think the TIE just got like launched in a certain direction.
I know, but like it's a short range fighter.
I assume that like recovery stuff came pretty quickly.
I can't believe that the Empire bothered.
They to see if Tarkin survived, to see if they didn't bother to see if Grand Moff Tarkin and Vader survived.
Well,
they didn't. It's like
somehow Grand Moff Tarkin.
Half of the other like
we need that terrible line in the movie. Somehow Grand Moff Tarkin returned.
That should have been the villain of episode 9.
It would have been better.
He's just like a really decrepit. He has a walker.
Let's not go down that thing.
He's like Darth Maul. He's
So literally, the worst thing happens in the last episode is we lose a member.
The episode's called Plan 99, and I'm like, in 99, do you remember 99 from Clone Wars? 99 was the old, deformed clone that was like a janitor, like on Kamino, and like all the clones loved him essentially, and like he even like gave advice to a couple of like the Domino Squad, and like he sacrifices himself like to try to like get like grenades and stuff to people like during the like siege of Kamino. So and like Clone Force 99 is the official name of the Bad Batch. So like their name in general is an honor to like that guy because like they're enhanced or like slightly off. They've like, well, they're not even like, we don't even know if like the Bad Batch are necessarily like purposeful enhancements or if they were just like mistakes that happen to be good. I think that's more what the Bad Batch is. I feel like that's what it is. I think they were just like, these guys happen to be good. There was probably other clones that had horribly misfigured features that just got disposed of, but these ones had actually helpful
I've always felt that it was that.
Which is dark as well, that you think about it on that level. But then the episode's called Plan 99, and then Tech like, and they've kind of set it up at a little bit at the start of the last episode.
It was almost. It's funny, like in that episode where he's like talking to Wanda Sykes, the actor.
Wanda Sykes.
The voice
It's
actress.
a weird choice.
She's great. I love it. And like
fine,
she's,
yeah.
you know, she's kind of got a crush
she's an
on him,
annoying
and,
episode, but
and
yeah.
she's hitting on him basically, and he has no clue.
No, he does.
He doesn't.
kind
He
of.
just doesn't
know
know
how to process it.
He doesn't
in
know
a way.
either way. It's kind of
He's
like
would you require a briefing like before they?
it almost sets it up like, oh, this is not good. Like you almost, if you
Well,
watched
you see
a
what
lot
he
of
does.
television,
He's like, I can get on top of this thing because again, they're on this like big track and it's
Yeah.
just floating like God knows how high in the sky. And to be fair, like and he gets the track like moving again or gets the power restored so they can escape. And like they get it like it's and like scary ass scene. You literally see his body just get like thrown like when the track gets attacked by like
Right.
literally like sky striked essentially by like ships like attacking them.
Right.
Which they're literally the ships get told by Tarkin, yeah, to shoot him down. Screw our own guys. Like we're just, you can just get, which is very Tarkin. Fuck, they'll die for the glory of the Empire. They'll die for the.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Well, that's what
they'll
they
be heroes.
That's why they want a human army, like as opposed to a clone army.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, and
But
obviously
Tech has
that's
to sacrifice himself.
so it's
to, like,
it's
to separate
heartbreaking.
his part.
I
And, well,
mean,
to be fair,
Wrecker
he could be alive.
Okay, but before we get to that,
Yes.
I feel like there's an interesting option here for Wrecker
Mm-hmm.
that when we come back in the next season, that Wrecker's got to experience some guilt because Wrecker was supposed to save him and couldn't, and then he ended up just kind of like, you know, Plan 99, and he kind of commits suicide for the good of the team.
Wrecker was too big. He couldn't like. It was too much
But
weight.
and
shifting
Wrecker,
around.
I mean, I think again, there's got to be some, you know. Like, they can't have the season like, it's the Bad Batch and we're back, because obviously they have a lot to do now.
Well, no, they have to go get like Omega.
They got to get Omega
Like, 'cause
back, but
obviously,
they're
like,
dealing with loss, too. They've lost two members of the family, so
Oh
to
yeah,
speak.
very true.
And obviously they need to get Crosshair back, and obviously it sounds like, from what Zach discovered, that Cody's there, too.
It seems
so
like it,
we're
yeah.
going to be, it's going to be like, I think we're going to get a full-on
I think
like,
I think
prison
we have
break.
a more focused.
We're going to get a full-on
darker
prison
season,
break,
like,
because
coming
there's a
soon.
bunch of clones
Which
there.
I like this. I like that.
You know?
It's kind of gonna. I think force Hunter. Which I think Hunter, Wrecker, Echo as a 3 is pretty good without Tech, and I think they could explore those 3 like
Right.
dealing without Tech, and I guess without Omega as well. But then also pairing up Omega with Crosshair is a good choice as well, especially because like
Ooh, that's interesting.
Omega has seemed to have like a good Omega in limited time because again with like Crosshair and Omega haven't interacted all that much, but she has been able to like make.
And he would have
make
clearly
inroads.
turned her
She's
over.
been she's been
before.
able to make inroads into Crosshair like in the finale, and obviously like she cares for like him even despite like everything he's
Yeah,
done.
that's a really good point. They're going to have to work together on the inside as everybody else is trying to work together on the outside.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really, really cool point. And I think we might even. I wonder if they're going to bring Rex in to help them.
I think we're gonna get a little bit more. We only got Rex in 1 or 2 episodes this season, I believe.
I mean, they
But,
may choose to not bring Rex in just because it's almost like it's.
I love it. I do love how they use Rex as like he only gets like 2 appearances a season, like because everyone he knows how popular he is, so they're like, all right, we're gonna save him for like the good moments.
Well,
But
I'm wondering if like
I think we'll get more of him.
Well, I'm wondering if they're
this
going to go
season.
back to the planet first, like where what's Padu or whatever it's called.
Pabu and
I wonder if they're going to go back there
doubt
first to
it, like-
regroup. I wonder if they're going to bring like the girl with them because I think we're going to get the thief back.
I think they're just gonna be like. I think we're gonna start the season. And it's gonna be a bit of time has gone by already, and they're probably gonna be like pretty engaged in like whatever what Rex is doing, even if it's like probably just in the meantime. Well, they're also looking for information and like a way to figure out how to like.
Well, they don't
locate
even know where they
'cause again,
are.
Mount Tantus.
They don't even know where they are.
'cause they're at Mount Tantus in old like legends, like Thrawn finds like Mount Tantus like years after like the Galactic Civil War is over. That's how secret Mount Tantus was like in the old canon. Where like fucking nobody where like nobody knew where it was like at all, and it got found just like as because it was, to be fair, it was less of a clone. It was a cloning facility, but it was more of like a stockpile for like the Emperor's shit.
But at the end of the season, let me make sure I understand this. They don't know where they are.
No, Mount Tantus is where Omega is, where that lab is, where the Kaminoans
They
are.
have
They
to
don't
try
know
to
where that
figure-
is.
they-
That is
right.
still
they
secret.
weren't
that is
able
still
to track
hidden.
them, so
Yeah.
that's going to have to be something. So
And I wouldn't be surprised. Don't be surprised if that thing shows up in live action at some point, because Mount Tantus is very important to the Thrawn trilogy and the
so
old canon.
is he dead?
I mean, if you don't die, if we don't see you die in Star Wars, you can survive. That's just like the rule.
And
of
if
thumb.
we see you die, it doesn't mean you're dead.
I mean,
We have two guys that
yeah.
we know of that have fallen off of thing and lived.
Who? which it's just small, man.
Well, you're not counting the Emperor.
Maul got cut in half.
Okay, but the very
He didn't live though, did he? Like what the fuck?
I don't know.
I still don't know.
Darth Maul
we don't
survived.
know what happened to him.
Darth
like,
Maul's alive.
I am Snoke, which
I don't know what
it's
that
like
means.
fucking Christ.
But Darth Maul survived, so
God
you
damn
can
it, these
fall out,
assholes.
and he got cut in half.
What?
He got cut in half.
That's fine.
Tech
You
still
don't
got
need
his
your bottom
He's
half.
still got his utility belt, so he might be okay.
Well, I'm like,
And why else would they just bring the goggles and not his hand?
this is all we could
or
find.
something
It's
like
just his
that.
goggles. I'm like, okay, like what are they? Like,
And this guy's not
which
trustworthy.
it could just be like I'm fucking with you. Here's his
Yeah.
goggles. It could just be something as simple as that. But also, like it is tech. Like he still has the rope. There's like a thing that's heavier on top of him. Maybe he can
Right.
do some like crazy like
Tech shit.
like like physics shit and
Yeah.
you know what I mean and,
Or
like
not space physics.
maybe he's gonna pull a Gandalf. There's water below him. That's all it takes. You can fall from as high as long as there's water below them.
Well,
Like that's the Gandalf thing, right?
the
That's
acceleration due to gravity or whatever we're supposed to
Because
learn
people forget,
in
like
physics.
Gandalf doesn't die because he falls at all. Like Gandalf just dies like in the because he like gets tired fighting the Balrog. Like he doesn't die from falling into the water at all. Like
He's Gandalf.
even though he falls like miles.
But he is Gandalf,
True,
and he's not just a
he's
typical
an
human.
enhanced clone. He's
No, but
fine,
he's
man.
also not a typical human.
Who, what, Gandalf? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Gandalf's not human. That's right.
So
he's like a
'cause
weird
he's
angel
because
being
he's the
thing,
alien
yeah.
dude that we learned on the other show.
Oh, fuck that. Just don't give me started on that
He's
shit.
not.
I mean, that
he's
is kind
not
of what
human,
he is.
But
like,
nobody ever thought that Gandalf he's not human because he's like a
No, I
foot
know,
taller
I
than
know.
all the other humans. He's not a
is he,
traditional
he's
human.
not a foot taller.
He's
That's
a
just
lot
him
taller
counting
than all the
tall.
other guys. He's taller than everybody
What,
else.
Then what? Then the hobbits? Yeah.
no, not the
Then
hobbits. He's taller than all the other dudes.
I think that's just because of the actors, man.
No, I think they make him a little bit taller because
Maybe.
Gandalf
I wouldn't be surprised.
Go back to the books. Gandalf is significantly taller. All the wizards are all taller than all the humans.
I don't think I ever picked up on that he's like that much taller.
Well, you should read more.
I've never read Lord of the Rings books.
I read Lord of the Rings.
Actually, that's not true. I probably will someday. But
So, all right. Well, let's move on.
I don't know.
Should we go do the Rebels thing now, or do you want to just go? Because I don't have as much for Rebels.
I mean,
Let's do the Rebels
we
one.
can do Rebels.
So
real quick,
first,
yeah.
so again, so I never
was
watched
there
Rebels.
anything also Bad Batch that we want to talk about real quick? Like anything else that
I don't
we
know.
I'm just trying to think real quick. Is there anything
Sid,
we missed?
fuck you, Sid.
I think the best two episodes were the ones in the middle where like the Emperor played them.
Oh yeah,
That was the
that's
best.
really
I think
good.
that was the best thing
Yeah.
because we got a classic Emperor like
Yeah.
playing 3D chess like arc over 2 episodes and also I very much like that and this is like a subtle detail.
I totally forgot about
and
that.
I've mentioned this all the time.
I
I
totally
love
forgot
that
about
the Emperor that technically the Galactic Senate or like the Imperial Senate I think is what they call it is not dissolved like till A New Hope. I always liked that
Right.
that the Emperor basically spent 19 years
He just let-
slowly eroding rights
Yeah.
and slowly even though it was an empire like he realized like if I just take them all the way like right away then like it's not gonna work but if I slowly
Russia still
do
has
it
elections.
yeah exactly
I mean,
so-
they don't mean anything, but
exactly
you know,
like the Democratic Republic of North Korea
know.
so like the Democratic
what a surprise! Everybody,
Yeah.
100% people voted for the
wow
guy. No, I think that was. I forgot about that a little bit. That
Mm-hmm.
that little thing that they all just got. Everything they did ended up just kind of blowing up in their face, even though they were doing it all for the right reasons.
Yeah.
It actually ended up helping.
and they brought back like Senator Chuchi, who was like a good
Yeah.
character from Clone Wars, and like she was at a very and she was younger during Clone Wars as well.
Right.
And this was a bit her like almost a bit older, and she was like a bit of a Padme esque senator. And Padme was her friend, so it'd be like. It's fitting for that character to almost like take up a similar role to something that I think Padme would have tried to do. as well.
Overall, good season. I still think season 2's better than season 1.
I think
just
the highlights
because
might be all yeah, because I think there's less highlight episodes in season 1.
I didn't know where we were going with it to some
that
extent.
was the issue I think for like the first until like we got to
Where
episode
now
7
I-
and 8. Like
right.
those was like 6 episodes at the start of the season. We're like, where are we going? We
They're
had
just
no
random
clue at all.
guy. They're the 18. For
Yeah.
a while, they were
'Cause
just
even
running
with the
around.
crosser episode, we didn't
Yeah.
really get an idea of where they were going with
Well, in the
anything yet.
beginning, it was just the A team. They were running around helping people.
Yeah.
which is fine. I didn't mind that, but I'm like, okay, is that all this show's going to be? Is just the A team in space,
right.
or is it going to be bigger than that? And I like the fact that
Yeah.
it did grow and got bigger than that.
All right.
So
now
all
we
right.
talk about Rebels, which
Yeah,
is
so
which
Rebels-
is actually pretty similar to Bad Batch.
So
Like,
for those people that haven't
Bad
watched
Batch is
Rebels,
actually a fusion of Bad Batch and Clone Wars in the respect where Clone Wars didn't have any overarching story at all.
Right.
Really, like it kind of does, but it's more just it's an anthology series. It's to fill in blanks. It's to support other things. It's
Sure.
to build relationships. It's in little. That's why you get like all the stories in Clone Wars, like, yes, sometimes threads pick up.
Right.
But mostly it's just we have a story, it's done in an episode, and then if it's a bigger story, it's done in 3 episodes, it's done in 4 episodes, maybe, and maybe you get like something like the Mandalore arc, which has like 3 arcs here, 3 arcs there, then like obviously the arc at the end.
Well, let me talk. So here's my perception of how Rebels comes to be.
Mm-hmm.
So you got Clone Wars, Dave Filoni, and
I'll tell you it's right, yeah.
And then this show's going on. They're into the 6th season, and during that time frame, at some point, Disney buys Star Wars.
You're close, yeah.
Okay, so but at some point in that taking over by Disney taking over
they
Star
had 5
Wars,
completed on Cartoon Network.
they have 5 done. We find out that season 6 is going to be the last season.
Yeah, they get bought.
Which pisses
6 is being produced,
Right.
And then they only release like what gets finished on Netflix.
So then everybody's mad
yeah,
because Clone Wars is really good. Although I do feel like season 6, not that it didn't resolve everything, with the ending of the Yoda sequence, which is
it doesn't
at the very
feel like
end,
it's the end.
It doesn't feel like it's the end, but it does at least have some closure. Like, because we get some things done with Yoda.
Mm-hmm.
It's better that obviously season 7. We've already talked about season 7 before, but in between, you said no. There are some episodes that were like released on YouTube that were never officially. They're not officially canon though, right?
So they basically they finished a certain number of.
Yeah,
I will go quick. They finished like a certain, like I think 12 episodes, like maybe 13 episodes of season 6. But there was other episodes of season 6, like one of which was the Bad Batch arc that eventually got like released, obviously, and then that became the Bad Batch show.
Right.
But like that arc, that you saw released in like 2020, whatever it was, that arc had been on YouTube, like in an unreleased, like unfinished state, with the voice acting done, with like most of the animation done, besides the more detailed stuff. But all the movement animation was done.
Who released it?
Dave Filoni and like Lucasfilm released it.
Okay.
They released like I think 2 or 3. I know for a fact it's at least 2, but like there's the other arc is like an Anakin and Obi-Wan and Utapau arc.
So then
like, for like 4 episodes, like an hour and a half.
So
worth of
somewhere
content.
in there, the Disney gets involved, and they're like, you know what we need? We need like a family Star Wars version of Clone Wars.
Well, it's a slightly
and
less.
we're gonna do Rebels, and we're gonna change the animation style.
Well, because Disney's original.
Hold on, let me finish my perception on the way they did it. And they decided to come out with this, and it's not even like on Cartoon Network or whatever. No, because because
it's the Disney XD.
Disney XD, which was like
I don't know, I forget. It's like 100 and like something.
Like I don't even know if that's still around, but this is obviously a forerunner to what Disney Plus was going to be. It was just another version of the Disney Channel. And they released it on there, and
no, it was just like another channel. It wasn't even like it's not even a forerunner. It's not like a streaming.
No, I know
thing.
it's another channel because there weren't streaming yet. There really wasn't streaming yet except for Netflix.
No, not at all. Yeah.
Like there really wasn't much in the way of streaming at that point.
I misunderstood you. My bad. Yeah.
So then they released this, and I would say the initial response was not good.
I don't remember. Okay, I didn't watch, so like I don't know if
that's
people,
my
like,
point.
Hated, like,
people were
Rebels
mad. There was a
but
lot of grumpy people.
There was no way that people were like watching that after watching like the last 2 seasons of because again that first episode of season of Rebels, which isn't bad, but it's the weakest season, and like it's a bit like of finding its feet. The only thing it does well is I think it sets up the unit well.
Sure.
I think like the thing that they do well across all of Rebels is like there are 5 main characters, 6 main characters are. Like have good relationships with one another, and that you care about those like relationships, and that's at least like when it's filler, you can that like sustains you at least on some level.
So fast forward to 2023, and you and I are talking, and we start talking about Rebels, and I said, "Well, what is Rebels?" Because I didn't really know. So
you've watched some Rebels.
I'd seen
before,
a couple
but, like,
of
you
things.
never really paid attention.
No, the reason why I think Rebels came up is because Obi-Wan the show comes out, and the scene. Where finally in the last episode...
You mean the weaker version of the scene they did in Rebels?
Okay, sure. But the scene where... I'm sorry, I love that fight scene. That fight scene's very good.
No, but it's a weaker... But not the fight scene in general. But like, obviously in Obi-Wan, and this is I think where you're going, they have the thing where like Obi-Wan breaks open the mask.
Yes.
And like you get... Anakin.
The other side of the mask.
Which a lot of people, for people who've seen that for the first time, I'm sure it was cool. But to me, who's a Star Wars fan, I saw that 6 years ago.
I think
and I'm better, and it was done better.
Well, let's get back to that.
Yeah.
So because we watched that, and we have this incredible sequence where we get to see
You watched this the first time the other day.
Aiden Christensen voice again, and that cross between James Earl Jones and that back and forth thing, and that, I didn't kill, you didn't kill him, I did type of thing. And obviously it wrecks the mask and everything. And then you said, oh my, and Zach too, like you're basically saying this was from Rebels, except obviously it's the same people. I mean, it's all Filoni. So
I mean, kind of. It was a different crew,
this is a parallel. It's obviously
It's a
on
parallel
purpose.
operation, yeah.
It's supposed to be that Ahsoka gets the one side of the mask and Obi-Wan gets the other side of the mask
I think
on
so, yeah.
purpose. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that it's supposed to parallel that.
Oh, I do
and
like
that's
it.
why we
Yeah.
talked about that I needed to I needed to watch Rebels.
Yeah.
So I started watching Rebels about 2 months ago, and finally, and I've been watching it religiously because we've got so much other crap going on. So finally, I'm up into season 2, and I gotta say, like,
No,
it
it's
gets
stronger
better
than
and
you
better and
remember,
better.
yeah.
Yes, I'm still not in love with the animation style,
No,
but
it's
I
a bit-
do
yeah.
really like the characters. Ezra's a little whiny in the first half of the first season, but then he kind of gets away with it. But he's no more whiny than Luke Skywalker. Like, why are we still moving for it? Like,
Yeah.
I want to be a starfighter
he's
pilot
supposed
Jedi,
he's supposed to
sir.
evoke a little bit of Luke,
Yeah.
but he knows his parents, and like he's
Yeah,
from,
but his
like,
parents are
yeah.
pretty. They're
They're
dead.
dead, yeah.
Well, I mean, we don't know that right away. He assumes
Well, yeah.
that there might be a lie.
He's been on his own for a very long time.
But
though. Like,
I
as, like, a street
really
rat.
do like. There's some Rebels grows on. I think if people watched Rebels, if you haven't watched Rebels before, if you already watched Rebels and you kind
You
of
can
like
just skip the stuff. It doesn't matter. If it looks annoying, just skip it and then
Yeah.
you move on. Like it's like
because
you can
there are
tell
some
when it's a
things in
better
Rebels
episode.
that are really, really, really good.
Yeah.
Like Zeb is very good. Like I love
Zeb
that
is
character.
he's a decent because he's like he's the joke character. Like he's the
Yeah.
comic relief without being a joke himself, which is good. Like a lot of the time in cartoons, like the comic relief character is also like a joke as
Yeah.
a person or as a character themselves.
He's a cross
Whereas,
between like a Chewbacca and a Wrecker.
Well, he's the original. He's one of the original concept designs
Of
for
Chewbacca.
For Chewbacca.
Yeah.
Is like that race's.
Well, that was
design.
another thing about the show. That a lot of the animation is based on the style of
Yeah.
what's the artist, the guy who did
Ralph
the
McQuarrie.
yeah, like did
Yeah.
a lot of the original, concept
the
art,
concept artist.
which they've used a lot also in Mandalorian stuff
I
too.
think Chopper is like kind of one of the original designs of like R2 as well. Not the entirely, but like
And
the
Lloyd-
arms were like
okay,
especially.
Chopper's
one of them.
freaking great. Like my second
Yeah, Chopper's
favorite.
great.
Chopper's my second favorite droid because obviously nothing's going to beat R2.
Yeah.
R2's still the goat, but I mean Chopper is a close second.
Yeah,
like
and you're just getting into like the really good parts of Kanan's story.
Yeah.
but Kanan is like a really good like Jedi, and especially for like a Jedi that survived Order 66 and then kind of lost his way as a Padawan, gets like knighted at that temple like in season 2, like by like the temple itself essentially. And then obviously where his story's going now that he like at the end of season 2 he loses his like vision. And
don't nothing about 3 or 4
no, there's nothing about 3 and 4.
because I haven't watched 3 or 4 yet.
But yeah, obviously his story, like Kanan's like by the time like his story is like we get to like the end is very like is one of the better Jedi characters in like all of canon that people like.
There's a lot of really good stuff in the first 2 seasons, and this is the weird perception
and
I
this is the
kind of
weaker
have.
half. This is the much weaker half of this.
And I'm excited for that because I'm actually like, okay, I get what it is, but there's also part of me that I think Filoni is very smart. Obviously he's very smart. Like he did Clone Wars, and he told them, "I'm going to do a kids cartoon show of Star Wars.
I'm gonna fix the prequels.
No. But I think it's going to be like, I'm going to do a kids cartoon show. And that's how he sells the show. And then it's not really for kids. Like it is kids, but because it's animation. But at the same time, because it was on Cartoon Network originally, right? And
Star Wars: The Clone Wars.
but then he's like, yeah, but I'm going to start sneaking in all
as
this
you get
shit.
further on, there's more and more
And
adult
he's going to
themes,
sneak
like
shit in, and
Clone
I'm going to
Wars.
sneak this shit in, and then people are going to start to get killed, and you know, like it's not always
Well,
just
to be
going to
fair,
be
there's
like
always
stunts.
a fucking ton of death in Clone Wars.
I get
people
that.
are always
But
dying
I
in
feel
Clone
like
Wars.
Filoni did the exact same sales pitch with Disney when
A
they
little
went
bit,
to
yeah.
him and he said, we'll do like a kid friendly.
You can get away with less, though.
We're gonna, but I think already now we're getting into season 2. By season 2, and I've started season 3.
Yeah.
Like all bets are off, and he's just doing it now. It really does remind me a lot of Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Like
I would say like when I was thinking Rebels gets like fully kicks into gear. And I would say you'd probably agree with this, is like when you get to like the twilight of the like Apprentice stuff, like which is the finale of like season 2, is when like I think the show really kicks into like its prime. Although I think there's some other smaller episodes, like the temple episode,
the temple
episode in season 2.
That first episode where they go to the temple and we hear Frank Oz again, like
they go to the
shit,
temple twice, and then both
and
those
Yoda's
episodes
sitting
are
on
good.
Yoda's sitting on like a log, so clearly he's just using the Force, his ability to use the Force from Dagobah, and he's just
protecting
communicating
himself a little bit.
And here's what it does, which is why I think it's so important.
Yoda's
because
keeping an eye on everyone.
This what?
Yoda, I like that Yoda just keeps an eye on like everyone, at least in a sense.
And what it does is it doesn't feel like this Rebels show is off on an island, like on a parallel universe somewhere, and it doesn't overlap with all what's going on in the proper Star Wars universe. Like now we're realizing, okay, because like I think we even seen like Bail Organa at some point, didn't we?
Yeah, Bail Organa's in the first.
So like,
seasons.
when you start bringing in those other characters,
because they're working in a cell that's eventually going to be a larger part of the
but
rebellion.
and up until then point, I'm like, okay, we got a cameo from Bail, and I love Bail Organa because I like the actor. But then eventually, holy shit, they got Yoda, like friggin' Frank Oz is here.
They get some good voice actors.
And I'm like, oh, whoa, wait, fuck, like. Yoda knows who Ezra is. Like, so to me and Kanan, like once they do that, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm okay now because now they're not in some isolated like pocket, of the rebellion, and we're never going to see them.
But yeah, first season though, you still get like a couple of good things. Like Grand Inquisitor, I think is a good character.
Grand Inquisitors are good,
and I think you see why people were annoyed with like how he looked and acted in like Obi-Wan now, because now that you've watched like Rebels, like you understand now.
Yeah. Well,
you understand.
That stuff doesn't bother me as much.
I know, but still,
I mean,
but it's just like you can.
I'll tell you what bothers me, and it bothers everybody.
No, we'll get to that, but we'll get to this.
That's not how the Force works.
Vader gets finessed by Rebels too. Like they do a good job with Vader. Like first off, like his art design is also just like the Ralph McQuarrie art style for like how he looked instead, which they just totally do. And also it's what's his name? It's I'm blanking out his name.
James Earl Jones.
It's James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
He's doing the fucking voice.
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh, okay, like.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, like for me, like obviously we in this the finale of everything just hits in the finale of like the final 2 episodes of season 2 as well, because you get like 3 Inquisitors that they got to fight. You run into fucking Maul. Which how was your reaction to that? Like
okay, so they get into the temple the second time, and there's some old man in a cape, and we can't see him.
Yeah, this is like the Sith temple.
And I'm like,
Malachor.
the Sith temple, that's right. That's the first time to this temple. And I'm like, this isn't good because there's no guy stuck in this temple for 50 years or whatever the fuck that's supposed to be. Yeah. So this is clearly a ruse. And then I see the eye. The first thing you see is the eye. Like you see that yellow eye.
It took me a minute or two.
But you don't see the eye right away.
No, they hide it well for a bit. And you see the yellow.
It's
and the
same
weird,
voice actor, but I feel like
it's the same voice actor from Clone Wars, but he hides it a little bit.
He definitely disguises his voice because obviously I would have recognized the voice from Clone Wars. Mm-hmm. And then
it's Sam Witwer.
Then once you see the eye, and I'm like, oh, because he's got the
the
same,
weird like sun eyes.
That yellowish, orangey eye, and I'm like, you mother, get away from Ezra. And like,
it's like, go away,
you freaking pedophile, get away from Ezra. Like, because it's not good. Like, it's not good, and
you're like, how is he still here? You're like, how is he not dead yet? You're like,
someone's lightsaber him into his brain.
Again, that came out before like. Again, keep in mind, at this point, there's no Solo. Like, Solo's not out, so we don't know that, like, there's not that weird-ass scene at the end of Solo where he just pops up for some reason.
Right.
And also, the final season of Clone Wars doesn't exist.
Right.
So, like, the book might by this point, because, again, the final season of Clone Wars is kind of described in a book, like an Ahsoka book, but in, like, or Fight with Maul a little bit, but that doesn't really count as far as I'm concerned. Like, that doesn't exist. So the last time you've seen Maul at this point is when the Emperor is, like, shocking him. Like, at the end of that one Mandalore arc, maybe there might be like a comic series out at this point where he gets freed by Mandalore, but because that does happen in like a comic series. But like for the most people, last time you saw Maul was like the Emperor captured him. So like you're like, how the fuck how did he get away? Like why is he here? This is like 20 years later. Like and it's like he's still alive. It's like he should have died 30 years ago.
Something else I really like about Rebels is I feel like the characters grow very well.
Yeah, I would say so.
I'm kind of glad that Ezra's lightsaber gets busted.
Yeah, that's the stun lightsaber. Yeah, people hate that shit.
I didn't like
People
that.
hate that fucking lightsaber.
But what I do like is the
green reflects him better anyway.
The use of Ahsoka in this is
Season
really
2
good.
especially, yeah.
Is really good because I think they aged her up enough, which works.
Mm-hmm. She's like in her 30s here, I think. At this point.
Yeah, I think it's really good. I think the use of the incorporation of Rex is really good.
Yeah, they go and get him and recruit him.
I think all of this stuff is really,
and Rex
really
is
good.
in the show a lot. You don't think Rex is going to be around nearly as much as he is, but he becomes like almost a sub, like one of the more present and side characters. He's in the same rebel cell as them and everything.
And again, for a thing that's supposed to be a kid show, the arguments between Rex and Kanan because
about like their viewpoints on
and
things.
Kanan hates him. Because he's
At
represents,
first, yeah, especially.
But he has to get through that, and it's funny because Picard has done this a couple. Well, Star Trek's done this a couple times now. When we first meet Captain Sisko, he's on the commander of Sisko. He meets Picard, and he hates Picard because Picard was in charge at the battle. And then we got that in the Picard season 3 with Captain Shaw. So I like this fact that you would have to have some resentment, even like. There's always going to be some resentment because you and your buddies killed all my friends.
Yeah. Well, even Kanan, like deciding to train Ezra again is like a massive choice for that character. Because that's a character who's like is hiding his Jedi-ness, and deciding to train Ezra again is also deciding to like reconnect yourself to like the Force, into that like line of thinking again. So Kanan along with Ezra, Kanan almost learns nearly as much as Ezra does, as they train.
How canon are the fulcrum things?
The first fulcrum thing that's ever dropped is Ahsoka's fulcrum, like in Rebels. Like that's the
pyramid thing.
The fulcrum.
The little pyramid.
Oh, not the fulcrum.
What are those called?
The holocrons.
Holocrons.
Fulcrum's like the code name of like Ahsoka when she was what's it called?
The little pyramids.
Those go back a long way.
So they're from Clone Wars.
They're from before Clone Wars. They're from like Knights of the Old Republic, and like a lot of like those holocrons have a deep history in Star Wars.
I'm not gonna talk.
And the first thing on screen, probably like maybe in the background of the original trilogy, or like not the original trilogy. Maybe the background of prequels, maybe. I think realistically, Clone Wars was the first thing they should have been on screen.
Well, I was just wondering about some of those things that show up in Rebels.
I don't think we've seen a Sith. That's the first Sith one we've seen. I would say.
Well, that would make sense.
Because obviously this is the first Sith temple we go in besides the one on that Yoda goes into, like in his arc where he meets like Darth Bane and like that weirdness. But
so now we're going to. So again, I think that season 2 is really good. It ends in a really good place.
Obviously the Ahsoka Vader stuff is peak Star Wars.
I would say that when we get to see that moment where Ahsoka and Vader have to meet. And she suspects that Vader could be Anakin at this point.
She has kind of put the pieces together. She sensed him earlier in the season, which was a good moment as well. When the one TIE fighter comes out of fucking hyperspace and it's just Vader and he destroys the entire... Yeah. Oh, yeah, when he shows up in the finale, he's
literally just riding it.
He's riding the top of his TIE
He's like Aladdin.
Down. Like he's like forcing it. I assume he's like forcing the controls on the inside.
He's like Aladdin. He's like riding it like a magic carpet. Like,
shit's sick.
And it's like, okay, we get it. He's Vader.
He destroys Ezra's lightsaber. Obviously Maul blinds Kanan in this final. But then obviously you get that moment where he's about to like strike Ezra down. Ahsoka saves him and cuts the mask open. And obviously it's not Hayden Christensen, but in this time it's fucking Matt Lanter's voice. It's like Clone Wars Anakin's voice, and to me is like Clone Wars Anakin's my fucking Anakin. Like it just is. Yeah. Like I like Hayden Christensen. I've grown to appreciate him, and like especially in 3, 2 I can't fucking stand him. But that's not his fault. It's the director.
Yeah,
we're not doing it.
Keep moving.
But Matt Lanter, that Clone Wars made me love Anakin. Like you know what I mean? Like I love Anakin because of Clone Wars. Like I understand like why like it's tragic that he became Vader, like because of like how like much he cared about his friends, about his men, and about like the galaxy, even if he had like weird like inklings towards the dark side like all the entire time. It's just, but then you hear the James Earl Jones go out though for that voice instead.
Well, they did something,
oh my God.
And then they took that same concept and then again they used it.
They did the same thing
in
again.
the Kenobi series, which
I
thought
so
was pretty
effective.
cool. And
it is a different take on it with doing with Hayden to come back and have his voice, because obviously there's some people that do have a little bit more connection to Hayden from like.
Well,
prequels,
you're not going to
so.
in live action. You're not going to use the animation voice. That
But
would be
interestingly
silly.
enough, I love about Rebels in Obi-Wan, he gets through the mask, but like he never gets Anakin. Like Anakin never comes out. Like it's
Right.
just Vader. Like you see Anakin's face, but you don't get Anakin's voice
No,
or like
no.
or his essence in Rebels.
No, not at all.
In Rebels, there's like a second where like which I fucking love, that Vader loses himself, and you just hear like Vader just say Ahsoka like desperately, and then he says it calmly, just like calmly says her name, and they look and they like stare into each other's eyes, and it's like, and there's this horrific moment.
Think
between,
about
like,
that
'cause it's such a
moment.
beautiful relationship, and they grow together throughout the top like those
Right.
5 like seasons that
Right.
they're together as well.
And the thing that I like about that too is, think about it. Up
Mm-hmm.
until this point, from the time that he's decided to be Darth Vader,
Yeah.
even before the suit. Obviously, he loses to Obi-Wan in the fight. But once he's in the suit, like, it's all gone his way for a really long time.
Yeah.
Like, he's really been able to do whatever he wanted, and he's had success. So, in his mind of what his goal is or whatever, and this is the first time he's really interacting with someone special to him, and she kind of bests him a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, and he's not really had that moment of where he wasn't, a Sith Lord, so to speak. So,
Yeah.
I think that's really kind of interesting. The way they do it, and the way like we don't really know,
We don't
what happens.
We see them both walk a walk.
We
We
just-
we see a little bit of like Ahsoka's silhouette walk into a door and then get shrouded by darkness. So it's like, okay, is she alive? Like, and you see Morai, her little bird, go above her. Obviously Vader gets out of there, but like obviously you watch the first 2 episodes of the next season and they think Ahsoka's gone. Like Ahsoka doesn't go back to them.
So let me ask you this. So
You're gonna find out. It's very.
no,
you're not gonna,
that was the question I was asked. So what happens in the end of 2?
I can't tell you.
We do eventually see something that addresses
Yes,
what
it's
happened
it's
in
towards
that scene.
the end of season 4.
Oh, I think I know what this
they
is.
literally,
actually.
yes. It's
So they
it's
do
like,
address
I've
that.
talked about it before. You might, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, but I mean, like, I again, you got to remember,
It's
I only
fucking
have,
wild,
I
but
got
yeah,
little
it's-
pockets of information,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
don't necessarily
It's fucking
know.
really, really
I
wild,
know
but-
exactly what it is now, but again, I still don't think it's going to matter, because here's the point: we get back at the end of that end of season 2. They get back. Kanan's blind and everything, and
Yeah, it's
it didn't
bad.
go.
It's not-
it
yeah.
didn't go well.
Ahsoka's gone.
It didn't go well. We're worried about Ezra because now we know that he's like, oh shit, he's
He
been
opens
a little.
the last scene we
Because there
see
was
is
the
he
whole
opens
thing
he
where
opens the holocron. It's
Maul's
the
like,
last
he's
thing.
my apprentice now, bitch. Like, there's that.
Yeah,
bit.
because Maul's fucking psycho.
Mike's,
Maul's fucking-
and
and Maul wants to like turn on like this like temple to just like enact revenge. Like
I'm
he's
not
turning
even
on,
sure
like,
that works,
No,
but-
it's like literally. I think it's sentient. I think the weapon was sentient.
Well, yeah, because
and he could
it's-
literally just
well,
like
'cause
talk
it was
to it and say,
talking.
"Yeah, can you just blow up Coruscant?" And he'd be like, "Yeah,
Yeah,
sure."
yeah.
I think that's literally like what that thing was gonna do.
So
Like,
but here's the thing that freaking gets me. And this is animation, family style animation, right?
yeah.
Here comes Rex,
Oh yeah.
and he's looking like,
where's Ahsoka?
"Where's my friend?"
Yeah, where's my
and
friend?
I like teared up.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, someone's gonna
Well,
tell
even, like,
Rex
when
that
they get back on the
Ahsoka's
ship
dead."
again, and also Chopper's a G all the time, but like he's always saving the day. and
Chopper's.
shit.
It's funny
But
because
like
they
he's just
didn't.
like crying. Like you have like this moment where like they're on like the plane, like after like the door just closed and Ahsoka's in there fighting Vader. Like there's a big ass explosion behind him. Like when the temple goes off, and like it's just Ezra's just crying, like literally into Kanan. And he's like, "It's over. There's nothing we can do now. Like it's too late. Like it's
Right.
it's like I'm blind. She's gone. Like it's too late. We
Yeah,
just
this
like
is-
it's
it is kind of again that season 2 Empire Strikes Back bad
Yeah.
ending. I mean, I feel
And
like
then you
they
got a
like
little
to do
bit at
that
the start of the
storytelling.
next season, and then they kind of go through like his struggle with the dark side pretty quick, which they go through it like it's almost like a flicker, like with the dark side.
I
It's
think it's important
like,
because
when it's almost and Kanan loses it doesn't catch up on it because he's in a dark place as well for a little
right,
bit.
but they address it with.
Yeah, you like that as well, yeah.
So what's he called? What's the guy called?
The Bendu.
So there's a moose.
Weird creature.
There's a space
Weird,
moose
like force
that I'm not even
sensitive
sure if
thing.
he's really there, but
He is.
So they go. They're
Kind
on
of.
this
Well,
planet.
maybe. We don't know.
There's like little spidery things walking around, and
Those are
I
Mando, too.
really like that little arc at the beginning of season 3 because Kanan's kind of like pulled away from everybody.
He's trying to find himself because he's like,
No, but he's depressed too.
yeah, he has no sight.
He's got no sight,
got a
but
beard now.
he literally walks away from the Force, so to speak, which leaves Ezra with the stupid pyramid that he's talking to.
Yeah.
And he's opened it up, so he's using it to tap into dark abilities.
He blames himself for like not
Right.
saving Ahsoka, not being
So he's
strong enough
kind
to
of a
save
jerk.
Copper Master,
He's kind of a middle school jerk now. Like he's just like, I hate my parents and I hate everybody, and he's real impressed with some minor accomplishments. And I like they do the episode with the Y-wings, and he fucks it all up.
Yeah.
Because he gets too big for his britches, to use a cliche. And during that great episode, there's all this stuff going on, but at the same time, where we see this other parallel thing, kind of like a Kanan on Dagobah kind of thing, finding himself, and
similar,
and incredibly
And Bender's such a
appreciative,
weird character too.
and incredibly appreciative that they had Tom Baker voice the
yeah,
character.
he comes back. He's
I
back a
mean-
decent amount this season. So
So when you're
weird creatures too, because
Yeah.
in Rebels it does a lot with this. Rebels is the start of kind of like it's not a new canon thing, but it's like Disney have focused on it a bit. This idea of like there being like more to the Force than like the Jedi and the Sith, and
Which
there's
I
like
think is
there's like the
important.
Bendu, which is like that
Yeah.
guy in the middle, and obviously Ahsoka is this weird,
Well, even in Rogue
like
One.
light side user who
Rogue
doesn't
One,
believe in
you
the
got
Jedi, though.
the
Yeah,
Force sensitive
exactly.
people, but they're not necessarily Jedi.
Exactly, and I think that links to this as well. And
Right.
like, so this is the start of, and obviously Rebels.
Because clearly having a blind character in Rogue One is very reminiscent of Rebels.
I don't know, yeah, a little bit.
Because he's able to.
I mean, people.
I am one with the
people
Force, and the
more
Force
linked
is one with
Kanan
me.
people weirdly more linked Kanan to. I forget why am I blinking? Wait, 1 second.
Yeah.
You keep talking for some person.
Well,
while
I
look
mean,
something up.
I really liked the. I mean, I thought that the use of Tom Baker is really cool because for me, like you said, you're watching the previous couple episodes, and you hear the voice actor from Anakin. Where I'm watching it, and as soon as he starts talking, immediately know that it's Tom Baker.
Yeah.
And that's the second time now that like Tom Baker says one thing, and I have a conniption because I know I get to see Tom Baker again. Like, my doctor from the 1970s. And, like, obviously it's in the 50th anniversary, and he's like, I think you might. And it's almost like every Doctor Who fan, old school Doctor Who fan, in that last scene of the 50th episode, when we get to see Tom Baker one more time in a different, whatever you want to call it, interpretation of which Doctor he is. He's not 4 anymore. He's a different Doctor.
I found what I was looking for.
But it's so neat, and I appreciate the fact that that Filoni
It's a good choice.
and his casting, they like the same shows that I like.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we get a lot of those kind of voice actors that are legendary in sci-fi.
Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead.
So like a lot of, I remember when he got blinded, a lot of people immediately linked it to The Force Awakens, and The Force Awakens, not The Force Awakens, The Force Unleashed video game, which was like you played as like Vader's like apprentice. And this was like an old legend story where like
Why does Vader have an apprentice?
it's a weird, it's like Dooku had like Asajj Ventress.
Yeah.
It's like that. It's like that vibe. So he's like,
But
he's
isn't Vader
he's like
still
an
technically?
He's like an inquisitor. Like he's not
okay.
like an apprentice, but eventually like the Emperor finds out, and you have this scene where like the Emperor like where he makes the Vader like kill him, but he pretends to kill him, and then he goes on. He like basically the first couple missions you do a couple missions and you fight like a couple Jedi for the Emperor, for Vader. Like he sends you after them almost like an inquisitor. And one of the first ones you fight is Ram Koda, who's like this Jedi who survived Order 66 because he didn't trust clones, and he had a army of like conscripts with him, or people that signed up like to fight. So that's how he and then he just fought the Empire for years after.
Right.
And he gets blinded by your character Starkiller in that fight. And eventually when Starkiller, he almost goes on the Emperor finds out about Starkiller and forces Vader to kill him. And then his mission then becomes that they're going to overthrow the Emperor, and you're going to go recruit a rebel alliance sort of thing. And he goes and finds that guy, and he's blind. So like Kanan has often been like compared to because it started off as a character that wasn't blind that became blind.
Okay.
To that, there's not a lot of similarities between them.
Sure.
But
Okay,
I
but
don't
it's
know why I
there's
just
a parallel
explained The
thing.
Force Awakens.
All right,
but-
so
or The
that's
Force
all I
Unleashed,
got
but-
because that's as far as I've gotten into it. I do like the fact that when they come back from the failed mission, that they kind of that things seem like they're turning to go back in the direction that they need to go,
Yeah.
which is cool. Because I don't want to get stuck into the
No, I agree.
he's too dark, whatever, all the time. I don't need that.
No, I agree.
I'm a happy guy. So, but we do have to mention. You warned me about
Oh,
this.
yeah.
You're like you're gonna hate something in this episode, though.
Yeah, so the Twilight of the Apprentice episodes are very, very well reviewed. People like them, but there's one thing you're gonna fucking like immediately notice, and you're gonna fucking hate it. Like,
So we're watching the episode, and the Inquisitors have these lightsabers
you missed it the first couple
that
times.
spin.
Too. You missed it the first couple times. So I
That
don't know how
spin.
you did, but
I guess I wasn't
they
paying
were
attention.
they were more in the background. But the first time they put it like right in front of your face, you
and
caught
he,
it, and you're
and
like,
he
oh
literally
my god.
flies away with a helicopter
Yeah,
lightsaber.
like with the spinning like
And I'm
Inquisitor
like-
lightsabers.
And what did I yell out?
You're like, that's so dumb. You're
That's,
like,
so dumb. That's not how the Force works. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
No, it's
like it
fucking
does.
dumb.
What is that? Like,
don't know,
no,
man.
I know what I yelled at. I go like, light has no mass. So there's no way that a
Well, it's not
lightsaber.
lights, isn't it? Like, isn't it? It's kind of physical.
It's
but like,
not.
No, not really.
There's no way it can push
It's
air.
not like it's not like
It's
I
not-
don't think lightsabers push like air like that. If that makes sense. Like I don't know if they.
I
Like,
suppose
yeah.
because they make that noise, that's proof that they push air, and so scientifically.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
But I just don't feel like it's like when a guy in a cartoon has like two balloons
And people
he
already
floats
like,
away.
People already weren't like ever the biggest fans of the Inquisitor lightsabers even before. Like
Yeah.
they fucking used them to fly. So I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my god, like
They
people
might as
are
well-
never gonna like these things.
Like a terrible
Because people
helicopter
always
sound.
thought the spinning thing was a little bit too gimmicky.
Yeah.
Which I think like sometimes
And they use
is.
it too much.
No, to be fair though, there are times it's to be like it's like the Grievous thing. It's like
Right.
the Grievous like had the multiple arms as like a advantage to like off put like a Jedi. It was an unfair advantage on purpose. So it was like this idea that not only do you have to pay attention to their combat, but also they have like a mechanic that makes it even more like.
Well, because theoretically,
Because also they didn't want to train the Inquisitors that well. They didn't
Right.
want the Inquisitors
well,
to actually be
theoretically,
good Sith. Like they were just pretty
like,
shit.
Obi-Wan should be able to wipe out any Inquisitor.
Yeah, like pretty easily, which is why I think was an issue with Obi-Wan's show.
Which
that
is
he didn't
thank God
fucking
in
off. He should have
thank-
offed
I
a
do
couple
agree, I do
Inquisitors.
appreciate
Like,
that in episode in that last episode of season 2 that all those Inquisitors get their asses kicked
Yeah.
because they
By
should
Maul,
not by
mainly.
Maul they should not survive.
Yeah, Maul
and
just
really
murders most of
Ahsoka
them.
should have been able to kill them too.
No, but to be fair, Ahsoka only doesn't kill them like earlier in the season because she's Ahsoka.
And we
Like,
need them to be around for the
Yeah,
rest of the. So
like,
we do need the yada
She's
yada.
still like
it.
a light side user. She's not. Ahsoka's not really like when Ahsoka says she's not really. She is in the middle, but she's not like using the like Sith abilities and stuff. She's just a light side user who doesn't associate with it. She's Jedi. She's more Qui-Gon.
So now
like,
to wrap it up, so we also lost part of the ship.
the Phantom or whatever. They replace that eventually.
So they just get a Phantom 2?
No, like it's a new ship.
That just attaches
It's
instead
a different
of the
ship
other
that fits.
one? Okay.
Weirdly,
They found-
like I don't know why multiple types of shit attached to the same like point
Carvana.
on this. Yeah,
They
Carvana.
they delivered it.
They
and
found the Carvana bending
it's just
machine.
a big vending
yeah, and then they
Like-
got a new one. Yeah,
People are like, I wonder, cars on a Carvana are too expensive. I says, yes, because you're
They're
buying
sitting there
them
in a fucking,
from like a
like-
12-story vending machine. That's not cheap. Someone's paying for that. You're paying for that in
Yeah,
your
fucking
stupid thing. Like you don't have very many of those
No,
because it's a
obviously.
gimmick. We have Carvana in our area, but they don't have like the stupid ass vending machine,
obviously.
which is stupid. But it's not as stupid as flying lightsaber helicopters.
Yeah, very true.
But I guess we have to disbelieve stuff.
Is that it?
Yeah. I mean, anything else? Don't worry about anything. Don't spoil it for me for Rebels. But I think that you said that as you've rewatched Rebels, you kind of have maybe a
I
slightly more
enjoyed the first.
appreciation.
I've always liked season 3 and 4, but I enjoyed seasons 1 and 2 more this time than I did the first couple times I've watched it. So
Is it because now you
I
have more
I
affinity
probably
for
have
the
more
characters?
nostalgia for it, and I know where like the
Yeah.
characters end up. So I seeing little moments that they used to build up. Which, to be fair, like there's like, only a few characters in the team that don't get a lot of like moments. 'Cause in this early part, like I think Kanan and Ezra get the most like attention, obviously,
Right.
but Zeb gets a good amount of attention.
Zeb has a
Like,
couple of really good story arcs.
yeah,
Like
Zeb-
that great episode where Zeb's with
Yeah.
the Agent Callus.
Yeah, and then
Like,
Chopper's
that's a really good
Chopper's
episode.
always around, and
Yeah.
like in not every mission because he's like that character and he's fun.
The Chopper episode with the legs pretty damn
yeah,
good.
that's pretty good.
That's a ridiculous
Yeah,
episode,
some of
but
the
who
side
cares?
characters of Rebels are
But
pretty
who
good too.
cares? Because it's just a fun episode, and I like fun episodes.
Yeah, you get like because they bring
I
back
don't want every episode to be
'cause
so
they bring
damn
back
serious
Hondo,
all the time.
Because like there's a
Oh,
couple characters
Hondo's
from
just
yeah,
great.
because
Like,
multiple
Hondo's
characters from
just so
Clone
good.
Wars they bring back that they do justice to, like Ahsoka, Rex, Hondo.
Well, Hondo's got that great line. I was very
yeah.
good friends with a Jedi. Like, at least I think we were friends.
My best friend's the Jedi. At least I think we were friends. Like,
And
I'm an
I
old Jedi sympathizer.
yeah, like,
whatever
and
he
I like
says,
that
like-
Ezra always calls himself Jabba,
Yeah,
and
it's
like
dumb.
stupid stuff like that. I like some of that stuff that kind of comes and goes with
Yeah.
with the.
But yeah,
with the
they
stuff.
get a little bit of Hera. Like the girls don't get a lot in the first couple seasons. They get more to do later on. Especially Hera gets. Actually, what Hera gets is like she's the most gung ho about being like a rebel.
right.
And like she obviously gets like promoted a couple times this season, and even by like Rogue One, we hear her name in the background
Right,
as like
General
General
Hera.
Syndulla.
Yeah, like, right.
And I think we met her father. Like,
And I
this
do have to
season
say,
as well,
yeah, I have
but
to. That episode's okay episode. What the one thing that I do think
But, yeah.
is funny.
Sabine
is,
and Hera, but I will say Sabine. All I was saying was that Sabine and Hera. And sorry to cut you off.
No, you're right.
Sabine and Hera get
more
more
is coming.
like
up.
Sabine and Ezra become more of a duo going forward, like especially like season like 4. But like and
well,
even
why
Hera
don't they-
gets because Hera's the mother obviously
Yes,
of the group,
but,
so
but
she's the
clearly
maternal like
Kanan
instinct.
and Hera are in a relationship.
Yeah, kind of.
Why can't we just like have it?
Because it's like a kid
why
show.
is it secret?
Well,
we didn't have to see them
to
like
be
bumping
fair-
uglies in their cabin.
to be fair,
Well, we,
don't
could see them
it's
like
not
kiss
that
or
we
something.
Don't necessarily know that.
Oh come on!
I don't recall if
They're in a relationship.
I don't recall. I don't think they like are that. I don't think it's like that. I think they both clearly, and I think everyone on the ship knows that these two people have like feelings for one another, and I think they've probably like interacted in that capacity on multiple occasions.
Yes.
But I don't think that they quantify their relationship at this point as like they're like together as a unit. I think
you seen the episode
I
of-
think they're more focused on like their crew
Right,
and like they're
right.
because again they're like the parents of like all
Yes.
these other people essentially. Like even Chopper and Zeb, they basically have to like be maternal and like paternal like too because they're idiots. Like because
So
they're,
then two
like,
more things, I guess. Then so it's just funny because it reminds me
they
a little
do address
bit.
it. It gets around to it at some point.
No,
Like,
they do
it's
get
not,
around
it's-
to it.
it
Because
does
I
not
want the
always
moment.
like it's not always the
My
entire
favorite,
show like
my
that,
favorite
but-
episode, one of my favorite episodes on The Expanse,
Yeah.
was when the what's his face, the two stars, like finally tell the other two that they're
Oh,
in
yeah,
a
yeah, I know what you're
relationship,
talking about,
and they're
yeah.
like, we knew it, like I told you.
No,
and
they
they're
were
like,
no. The one guy said no, and the one guy said yes. Right?
yeah, like
bet
they
on
were
it or
like they had a
something.
bet. I told you, he's like, hey, I got to get to hit you in the arm now. Like it was great because like everybody, like they kind of knew it, like but no one, so I like the
To be
fact
fair,
that
all the-
eventually
they-
we get to
they
it.
have moments where they obviously like dance around it, obviously, like
Right.
multiple, and they even have moments where like you can see the other characters obviously know or
Right.
like reacting or giving them looks, and it's just more. I think it's more amusing, like that. I don't think either one of them like have other not priorities, but I just think it's more of like they're not. I don't know. It's one of those dumb like will they won't they
So
things.
two other
I
little
assume
things
is
that
the
I'm
best
really
way to
glad
describe
because
it.
obviously we're going to see some of these characters in live action.
Most of them,
because we've
yeah.
seen the whales and we saw the whale episode, which is late. We see now is tied into Mando.
Yeah.
Not
And
that the
they're
whales
gonna-
did anything yet, but the
Not yet,
whales
but
are
they will.
there. The whale, we're going to eventually get some whale help. I think they're going to be like the Eagles at some point. The whales are going to help
A
out
little
in
bit, a
Mando
little bit.
because clearly the whales helped out in the episode that they are in the Rebels, which I thought was a really cool thing. I like this concept of creatures that live in
And
space.
Ezra's main thing is
Yeah.
like Ezra,
He
that
has
they
this
bring-
ability to communicate,
Yeah,
which
he has
makes
animal
it-
affinity,
Yes.
is what the
Which
the
I like
force
is very
ability
cool.
called. So because he's done it with a bunch of different creatures.
Yeah.
but the whales though were like obviously the most
That was really
strong
cool.
connection
That was
he
very
had.
cool.
So
And obviously, so I think we're going to definitely see some of these. We've heard names of these characters, but I think we only now we've seen
We've
two of
seen a
them.
cameo, yeah.
Well, we've seen two in live action
have you seen two?
because we saw Chopper in Rogue One.
In the background,
Chopper is
He
in
rolls
Rogue
by
One.
in the
I don't care.
background, yeah.
He's in Rogue One.
That
Dave
is
Filoni
true.
probably gets a
That
credit
is
for
true.
that. And then,
He rolls by.
obviously, we were all very excited for Mando this last episode.
Yeah, nice little cameo.
Which we got. Which that's not the
Gara
last
Zeb-
time we're
Gara
going to
Zeb-
see him.
No, that character model looks far too good. If he's still around.
How
he's
were you
still
with that?
working
How
the
were you
Empire.
with that? I know the answer to this, but how were you
I
with
freaked
that?
the fuck out. I was like, oh my god.
And
like,
did you
'cause
feel-
he shouldn't look that good? Like that character, like looking at like the Rebels animation
Yeah.
and like. Because it's such a weird animation style. It's not like lifelike at all, and it's super stylistic. Like it's almost like the entire art animation of Rebels is basically like a McQuarrie like art. Like that's kind of why it looks so weird because it's concept art, like across like everything. If
Sure.
that makes sense.
Well, the faces aren't so like angly like they are in Clone Wars.
Yeah, exactly.
So in some ways, I think
I think it's just. I think the
bringing
main reason
Zeb-
is just because the Clone Wars animation looks so much better.
I
is
think
more the
bringing
issue.
Zeb into live action is probably easier than a couple other characters.
Probably, but either way, like that character design is just so weird. Like it's just that race is very weird,
And they did it so
and they
well.
nailed it. Like
nobody
which I'm like, there's
complained.
no way they're gonna nail it that well
Right.
just for like this simple little cameo. Like he's gonna be a character, like because I think what we've heard
That was
so
a
far,
beta test
we've
thing.
heard so far that like Ahsoka, because I think Ahsoka's just gonna knock everything out of the fucking water.
Yeah.
Like is the first 4 episodes are gonna be a bit more of like what Ahsoka's been doing. Type stuff and maybe a bit of more flashbacky type stuff in and around, and then the final 4 episodes might be a bit. This is just rumors, at least. Might be a bit more Rebels, like epilogue,
Right.
sequel series type stuff with like Zeb and like a lot of our other characters.
Well, I don't know what happened, and obviously you're not going
Obviously,
to tell
I'm not
me.
gonna tell you.
Obviously, some of these characters, I'm like, how come we didn't see them Return of the Jedi? Because those characters didn't exist in 1984.
Yeah.
So how do they plot point it? Like they have to somehow plot point where they are, and how come Luke Skywalker never meets Ezra?
Hera's at
Ezra, you know.
Hera's at Rogue One. So
No,
Hera's ship. The Ghost is in Rogue One.
I
The
get
Ghost-
that,
it's a
but
great
it's not
scene.
like,
It's
but
a
they're
great
not like,
sequence when
but
you
it's
see the
never
Ghost.
like, hey, you know, and the Ghost is obviously supposed to be
Yeah.
the same construction company
I
that
did
makes
love
the
that.
Millennium
Like,
Falcon.
it's so even though the Hammerhead
You know.
ships they literally introduce in
Yeah.
in what's it called? I think season 2 might even be the season that season 2 or season
Bringing
3.
a Hammerhead
Yeah.
Corvette.
Season 2 or season 3 are the seasons. Like one of them is I forget which one is right before like the year when Rogue
Right.
One's coming out, and a bunch of the season is like references and like stuff that almost sets up like Rogue One or like links back in, so which is very fun.
Well, this ended up going longer than I expected. Right?
Yeah, so-
125.
Oh yeah, we're good here. Yeah,
I'm just, you know, it's funny because I've gone through and, you know, now and it's funny because I'm really, really late to the party in some of these things. Like with Rebels,
that's fine.
I'm really late
Plenty
to the
of
party.
Star Wars fans are still catching up to the cartoon stuff.
But
It takes people a while to get like
It's
the-
7 seasons of Clone Wars.
and people
it's
don't
4
believe you when you
seasons of-
say like the cartoon stuff is like good a lot of the time, even for Star Wars fans, because again, like usually it's not the case. Like
It's funny because, like, you know, because obviously I've been watching all the Star Trek shows over the years since they've come out, except for the original series because I was too young. I mean, I was a baby when those shows came out. So I watched those shows in syndication. But every show since then, I have watched in real time. If I haven't watched Prodigy or, I mean, I don't watch Lower Decks very often. But in terms of the shows with actors, I watch all these shows, and it's funny when you watch older, like people now that are discovering like Deep Space Nine, for example, and they don't really like Deep Space Nine in the first couple seasons.
yeah.
Because it's kind of like it, you know, like a lot of those shows sometimes have a hard time finding what they want to be. And it's funny because then once they love Deep Space Nine, they kind of go back and they rewatch
you
old
start to
episodes.
appreciate different
And then you're
things.
like, oh, I do like that they kind of laid this out in the early episodes. You know what? That episode isn't as bad as I thought it was. So I always liked Deep Space Nine. I never had a plane. Not every episode's great because they would do 26 or 22, whatever it was back then. But I think that's kind of like how some people probably feel now. Like they're over their madness at Disney for shutting down Clone Wars because they did get their Clone Wars season 7. And now they go back and they watch it, and once you kind of get through some of the silly Disney-esque stuff,
Yeah.
in the first season, they use like the music way too much.
Yeah,
Like,
the first
you
season
know.
is just all original.
And some of
trilogy
it's like
music.
offensive to me because
Yeah,
like
it's
that's
in
Luke's
the wrong
theme.
place.
It's like
yeah.
why were you in Luke's theme when Ezra's going to the
They use
bathroom?
it as like a force.
Like, you know,
They use Luke's theme as like a force theme a couple
I
times.
know, but there's a
like,
couple times I'm like, it just doesn't fit here.
Because it
It's
kind of
like,
works. It kind of is. Like Luke's theme is akin to like a more like.
I get that
forcey,
there's supposed to be
like-
similarities
yeah.
between the two characters. All right, that's all I got. You got anything else?
I think I'm good.
All right. So final update: we have not seen Avatar 2.
That's fine. Don't worry
We
about it.
pretty much have decided we are not going to go see it.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it how Dave Cameron intended
I'm going to what
On-
TBS?
on streaming.
I know. I'm planning to
It's like- yeah,
when it's
just
on
like-
regular television with commercials, so
Yeah,
I don't have to
exactly.
watch the whole
Yeah, there you
3
go.
hours. It's going to take like 4 days to air it on regular TV because they have to put in all the commercial breaks for a 3.5-hour movie. It's going to take them like 7 hours.
Yeah.
You have to turn it on at 6 and go to bed at midnight to watch the whole movie. So I'm not watching it. So, but I do want to see Dungeons and Dragons. I do want to see that. So maybe we'll go see Dungeons and Dragons this week, and we can talk about that. So John Wick's doing very well in the movie theaters. So
Shazam, what's the guy who plays Shazam is not doing well outside of the movie theater. He's having a little bit of a breakdown. He's having the guy who plays Shazam.
Levy?
He's not doing well.
Who's having a worse week, Levy or
that guy.
Jonathan
That
Majors?
guy.
Or Jonathan Majors?
Jonathan Majors actually might be like having a worse week because that motherfucker I don't like whoever his lawyer was needs to be
the
like
lawyer's making it worse.
I'm like what the fuck? This is like
I
dude,
feel the lawyer's making it worse.
Because like here's the thing, here's the thing, because obviously I don't know if we talked about this at all, but Jonathan Majors got arrested.
People can Google what happened.
He got arrested for an incident
supposedly abusing
involving
his girlfriend.
maybe his girlfriend or something.
Allegedly harming his girlfriend.
And again, in New York, I think this is the law that like if you get accused of that, like they just detain you and immediately because for the very reason because a lot of time like if you're the
influential
abuser,
people don't get arrested.
and again, people are stupid as fuck and they're like, look, well they recanted. It's like because they're an abuser and like they're an abusee. Like there's a dynamic sometimes.
We don't know exactly.
But that's true, and that's not what I'm saying. Right. I'm not saying that's the case.
So the
but
lawyer's
the point
making
of
it
that,
worse, though.
That law, though, is that you're arrested because, like, in case the person decides to recant because of pressure from you, like, or from, like, someone more powerful, like, they still have the incident, you were arrested, like, it's still on file, and they can investigate. They can maybe press charges even if the person doesn't want to.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And then, like, so that's what happened. That person ended up, I think, recanting. I think.
There's so much going on with that. I just don't want. I don't want to get into it.
But then, either way, like he's like, "Look, I'm gonna prove he's innocent," and then like the lawyer posts like the pictures, and then the pictures that like I don't know if you read those. Like
I did.
Like those aren't innocent texts. Like if if there was like if that's the only like concrete thing that we've seen thus far, and that's and that points to like not good.
Well, what I would say is there's two things in that. The two things is it's bad for the court of public opinion, but from a reasonable doubt, but for a reasonable doubt thing in a court case, it's going to make it harder for a court to prove things now when there's weird texts.
I mean, the way it said it to look to me, even the way like she's talking, like it seems like she's on the other end of like an abusive like situation.
Why is she? Well, let's not get into that because
she's like, look, I told them nothing. I don't know why they doing all this sort of.
The point is, both Marvel and DC.
But I think
I guess I only want to get to this. I don't want to.
No, the last thing I want to say about it,
we don't know anything about this.
I'm not. I agree, but the last thing I want to say about it is they released those texts, and this is why I think people are a bit more. Are leaning towards what I'm saying, even though we still don't. Even with all that released, we still don't have a lot. Right. Like we still have to wait a little bit and to see how things lay. But given that the lawyer put that out, like, and this you can look at the text and the way that the statement rides. They put them out like they were slam dunk, like this woman's a liar.
I agree.
Like they put it out like this was her lying.
That's why I said the lawyer's. That's not what I'm seeing. That's why I said the lawyer's making it worse. And I guess ultimately what it comes down to is that's what I said. Like, I guess the bigger picture of besides that woman's safety,
even bigger than like releasing it at all, like and just like
no,
because even if you just release the pictures, it's the statement along with the pictures that you released. It makes you think like you thought.
The only thing that I care about is that woman is safe. And
exactly.
Regardless, if whether he did it or whatever it is, that woman is safe, whether she has mental, whatever it turns out to be.
Kevin Feige looked at his phone and was like, "Oh my god."
Well, really. Both DC and Marvel are
Marvel's like that guy's just the Flash who hasn't played at least like they're killing that universe and he's like like they were gonna, I know they literally have to, I know that movie's good, but that's different than
Jonathan
like Marvel
Majors was supposed to be filming something this week.
Yeah.
If he had dates to be filming, they're not filming this week.
Yeah, I don't think that's
if there was anything in production that he's working on right now, and I don't know what's in production, I'm sure I could Google it and find out. But he's literally not filming anything right now. Like he's literally like, go home and sit in your bedroom and just like.
But Kevin Feige probably saw that and chucked his phone across the room.
Kevin Feige went to the Apple Store.
That's bigger than the Ezra Miller thing.
Oh, for sure.
At least for Miller, it's just
they don't need him anymore.
Yes, that movie's good, like from everything we've heard, but I don't think that movie's gonna make money anyway. If I'm being honest. Like,
well, I don't want to get into
I think
that.
it'll make some money. It's not going to be Shazammed, but either way, like that's a bigger scenario. That's not as bad as like, That's like if Josh Brolin, like as Thanos, like who is gonna be like the pivotal character.
I think
in,
it's
like, 2
worse than
movies.
that.
But it's worse than that, because Kang Steven's even more pivotal.
They were
to this
using him in
phase.
like 5 things.
That's what I'm saying. Like he's 2 Avengers movies, probably 1 or 2 in Loki. He's
Yep.
in like coming up soon.
But they're going to have to recast.
I don't know. Yeah, like maybe
They're just going to have to recast.
If it ends up like going that way, then yeah. Like,
they're just going to recast because or they're going to, maybe they'll kill the multiverse. And then just
That's
get
what
it
they
over
should
with.
do. Bring the fucking X-Men in. That's way more interesting.
Let's skip that.
So,
Just forget
I know
about
there's
it.
maybe some
All right, let's wrap
contractual
it up.
stuff, but
Let's
I
go
don't
home.
care.
Got anything else?
I'm done. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'd like to thank you, everybody, for following our socials and watching the podcast and listening to our podcast wherever you might be doing it, and all the support to all the other podcasts that we produce here out of Emerge. We're still looking for new podcasts. We have several new ones coming up. We have 2 new podcast sets. We're very excited about where we are. We're not even a year in here at Emerge, and things are going incredibly well, not just on our podcast, but in our video production, our photography, and a lot of the other collaborative things that we have going on here in Western New York. So I really appreciate all the support that I've gotten from everyone. So again, thanks for watching Next of Kin, and we'll be back next time with, I don't know, maybe our review of Avatar 2.